Hello yogins, welcome back. And today I'm back with a unusual yin sequence, and this is my clock sequence. So this is probably my most creative and playful sequence, and it can be a real challenge for some. And what I'd like to share with you is I studied yin yoga with Paul Grilly, and if you look back, you'll find that the first book that was ever published called Yin Yoga was published by my teacher Paul Grilly. First DVD that was titled Yin Yoga was again published by my teacher Paul Grilly. So Paul was a big influence in popularizing and standardizing what we today call Yin Yoga. Did he invent it? No. People have been holding asanas for minutes at a time since asanas were invented, I imagine. Before I studied yin, I would just naturally hold certain postures for minutes at a time because they just felt good. I didn't feel like my body had completely soaked up what it was getting from the pose, and so I would just stay in it. And you could say I invented yin yoga in that moment, except it had already been invented. So did Paul invent it? No. But has he been a huge influence? Yes. And generally what we call yin yoga today, the parameters were defined by him and his early work in presenting this. So I've studied with him directly. I've studied with him in California for 5 consecutive years, and I have my advanced yoga training with him. So I like to say that before we get into this sequence because, again, it's a very creative, out there sequence, but it's well within the parameters of a yin class. How do I know? Because I've studied yin so in depth. All right. So this sequence, the clock is going to work your hips and your spine in combination. So each posture will be targeting the hips and the spine. And to get the most from this, just bring a playful, open-minded attitude to it. Try and let go of your expectations of how you think a yin sequence should be. And I think you'll really get a lot from it. It's a great sequence, I think. Be willing to experiment. Relax, have fun with it. And remember that it's healthy and good for us to do things that are different and new, and to do the same things in different ways. So even though the postures, many of the postures are the same postures we always do, we'll be coming in and out of them in a different way in this sequence. All right, so pay attention. It is a little bit, it can be confusing. Again, that's part of the fun. Just have fun with it, relax, enjoy. Okay, and I'll see you on the other side. All right, so we start out laying down on our back, and that's called the Pentacle pose in yin yoga. So you just get comfortable, and we'll both start and finish in this Pentacle position. So whatever, any position your arms and legs are comfortable in is totally fine. And yoga is very much about bringing awareness into the body. So yes, there are postures, there are exercises in yoga, but it's about noticing or feeling your body as you do these different things, different postures. So even this posture, which might feel like nothing, laying on your back, you can choose to tune in on a finer level. Okay, our first active posture is going to be a cattail pose. So to do the cattail, we'll bring the left leg up and we'll drop it over to the right, all the way over. And then we prop our head up on the hand and elbow like so. this leg, which is your left leg, could be straight or bent. I have mine bent a bit. And then what we'd like to do is take the bottom leg and move it back. And then we'll bend the knee, reach back and grab that foot and pull the heel in towards the buttocks. And we have a stretch at the front of the right thigh. Okay, so this is a cattail pose. Okay, so you have some options here. First thing I'll say is you want to make sure you feel the stretch in the front of your right thigh. And you also want to be sure that this feels safe, that you're not asking your body to do anything that you feel is dangerous or compromising your health in any way. First thing you might think about is your left leg, which is the leg in front of you that you can see. And that leg could be straight or bent. Generally, the straighter it is, the more intense the stretch is. Additionally, the foot or the leg can be higher up or further down away from your face and chest. Generally, the higher, meaning the closer to your face, the closer to your chest, the more intense it's going to be. Now, is intense good? Sometimes, and sometimes it's not. So please don't think that when I say the more intense, I'm saying the better it is. Okay, it's sort of like fire. When you're cooking, is heat good or bad? Well, really, you want the right temperature, right? If you have too much heat, you're going to burn your food. If you have too little, it's not going to cook. It's going to be unsafe to eat or unpleasant. So postures are the same way. What's the right temperature for you? It depends. It depends on your age, how often you practice yoga, what other sorts of exercises you do, what you do for work, your diet, and your genetics. So I, as a teacher, can't answer that question for you. I can give you information and guide you, but I can't answer that. Some other things to look at are, is your head propped up on your hand like I have it? Or do you rest your head on your upper arm, on a block, maybe on the ground? And same with your left shoulder. Do you lay your left shoulder back toward the ground behind you, or do you keep it more or less stacked? Today we are doing this as a twist, so you might want to lay back a little more. And then finally, pulling the foot in is one option, moving it up or down, but you can also hold the foot and kick it back more actively. So even though generally in yin we're pretty relaxed, not every pose needs to be completely relaxed, and there are some very active postures in today's sequence, as you will see. Okay, so I said at the beginning this is an unusual sequence, and that is very true. And one of the things that's unusual is the way that we will transition from pose to pose. So now we will transition into a pose called a half seal. Okay, so this leg can stay where it is, but most people will probably feel better pulling it in like so. Hopefully you can see my foot is alongside my hip, or it might be under my hip. That will work as well. My hips are down and back, and then my torso is up and back. And what that does is a few things. I feel a stretch at the front of my right hip, this hip. Okay, make sure you know your right and your left when doing this, because otherwise you'll get really kind of turned around. So this is the left leg, and this is the right leg, the leg behind me. The leg behind me is the leg I'm actually stretching. Okay, so don't get confused and think that the leg in front is the leg that we are trying to work. In fact, this leg could pretty much be doing anything as long as it's not interfering with the stretch on the right leg. We're also doing a back bend, so pushing yourself back helps emphasize the back bend, and you might want a couple of blocks to help with that. Okay, which would look like that. And that's experienced as maybe just a little bit of compression in your back. All right, again, with back bends and yin, you can be quite aggressive if you have the bones for it and you have a healthy back and healthy spine. Otherwise, you can be quite conservative, but generally speaking, unless your doctor has told you so, back bending is good for pretty much everybody and needed by everybody. So if you can't do much without pain, just do whatever little bit of back bend you can do pain-free. And I think if you do that, you might experience what many people have experienced is over time you might be able to do more before you feel that pain, okay? Got just about a minute left here. Okay, we're going to transition again. This is another unusual thing about this sequence is normally we would have taken a break already. Or now we would have taken a break after a couple of postures, but we're going to keep going. Now the way that we do that is we'll take the back leg and swing it around. Okay, hopefully that's not too difficult for you to do. Swing it around, and I'm going to turn just so you can see me. So I'll turn from time to time for the sake of the camera, but you don't need to turn in your space if you don't want to. So the turning is optional and probably only necessary if you have a camera on you, okay? So here we are. This is the half frog, anytime our legs are like this with one leg here. And again, this is my left leg. This is my right leg. The right leg is a straight leg. And what we like to do is fold over our right leg and pull our left shoulder back over the right shoulder like so. And this is called a rotated half frog. And we should feel it in two areas. So one is here. Those are your adductors. Maybe the hamstrings a bit as well, but we're trying to get the adductors here. And then also here on the outside of the waist and ribs. So those are the obliques, the intercostals, and the quadratus lumborum potentially as well. Okay, so we are stretching those muscles, and then we're also working the joints in the spine and the hip as well, okay? From a yogic and Taoist perspective, we're also working energetic channels. Okay, so we'll transition again. Again, no break yet. We will be taking a break in a bit, but hopefully you're still doing all right, okay? And we're going to transition from a rotated half frog to just a half frog. And the way that we do that is just simply bringing the legs closer together and then just simply folding over the front leg like so. Okay, and I'll turn this way again just for the sake of the camera here. And hopefully you can see me okay. All right, so I'm folding forward. Now again, the left leg is not very important. We don't want both legs straight out because then it tends to affect the spine more than the leg, and we are trying to stretch the hamstring here. So asymmetry helps with stretching the hips. Symmetry helps more with the spine. Having said that, we are still working the spine here, so we let it round, nice and relaxed as we come forward and down, okay? Now, I haven't yet mentioned the props much. If you want to support yourself with a couple of blocks under forearms, something under your forehead, please feel free. If you have blocks or other props at home, you can also sit on something, sit on a block or blanket to push you forward a little more aggressively. Again, we want to feel a stretch here, and we want to feel or sense that this is safe for our bodies. Okay, another transition. This one might be a little bit awkward, but I'll try and make it as clear as I can. We take the front leg, should be your right leg, and we bend it and put it in this position. This is called external rotation when the femur is turning in this way. What we'd like to do is take the other leg, this leg, and bring it back behind us. Okay, once I've done that, hopefully this becomes a much more familiar shape, which is called in yin a sleeping swan. Okay, now today every posture is doing two things. It's affecting the hip, which is out here. Hopefully you feel the stretch right here. And then we also want to affect the spine. So if I'm here, there's nothing happening with my spine. My spine is basically neutral. All right, if I do this, I go into a back bend, but we've already done a back bend. So we want to do something different. We've done a couple of back bends actually. So now what we'd like to do is do a twist. So we come into a rotated or twisted swan. You can take a block under this hip if it's helpful for you. It's by no means required, but some people might feel like they're pushed over a little bit. Now, again, left and right, very important. Left shoulder to the ground, and then right palm into left. I push my shoulder back, or I can do one of these and push back a little more aggressively. Ideally, I don't lose the stretch here as I add the twist. Now, I recognize for many people, this will either be very challenging or possibly ineffective. And that's okay. Again, I teach a lot. I have a lot of sequences. And so this is, again, meant to be sort of playful and fun and experimental. So I want you to just play around with it, try your best. If you really can't do it, if it really is making you miserable, just do the plain old sleeping swan instead. Okay, you can stay there if you like. But it's very good and healthy for us to try something different and new from time to time. Now, if this is your first or second yin class with me or with anyone else, then yes, this might feel unnecessarily difficult. And in a sense, you're right. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this be someone's first yin class or experience, although it's fine. There's nothing in it that's dangerous, but it just might be a little more awkward. And so I would encourage you, if you're doing this and this is your first or second yin class, definitely try it again, do it again at another time, because this again is more playful and experimental. It's meant really for people who've done a lot of yin and are looking for something a little different out of the box. It's sort of like your favorite music. You know, you can play it over and over and over again, you enjoy it, but at a certain time you want to hear something else, something different. So we add the twist if possible. And granted, this is not, I don't think this is anyone's deepest twist. But if you do it properly, hopefully it actually enhances the stretch in your hip. And again, you may need to play around with the position of your body a little bit. I usually do as well. Okay, I got just under a minute left here. All right, now our final posture on this side, what we'd like to do is roll back onto our back. I'm going to go this way, but either way is fine. You just make your way onto your back. We have one more pose left on this side, and it's a fairly straightforward and easy posture. Moving our hips over to the right edge of the mat to start. We take the left leg and move it to the left, cross the right ankle over the left. Reaching up, we grab the right wrist with the left hand and pull it over. Now, if you feel the stretch in your right waist and ribs, great. You don't need to do anything else. If you don't, then you can move your upper body over to the left more aggressively, like so. The arms could be straight or bent. You can grab wrists or opposite elbows. You can even lower one arm if you need to. Just don't lose the stretch in your side. right, now let's come back to Pentacle, which we started in, just relaxing on our back in a neutral position. That's how you really want to think of the Pentacle. It's the neutral gear. You're not trying to exercise or change your body, you're just trying to let your body rest. This concept is very important in any type of endeavor that you try and do. In order to stay healthy and to grow, we must stress the systems of our body, whether that be physically, emotionally, or mentally. We need to sort of go to our limit, if you will. But then, just as important is that we have a period of rest and relaxation where things are allowed to integrate. How long that period needs to be just depends. So if you're doing interval training, right, there's a little rest between the intervals. But then, after a day at the gym, you might need to rest for a day or several days to let your body recuperate. And that, again, will depend on your age and how long you've been training and what kind of training you've been doing. So this is something that sometimes maybe more amateur athletes and people who exercise overlook. They just assume more is better, and they try and go to the gym every day, or they try and run every day, or they do yoga every day. And sometimes you need to rest. So whether it's a small break between postures or it's a longer break. I'd like you to feel your right thigh and compare that to your left thigh. Hopefully you can sense or feel a difference. My right thigh feels lighter, more vibrant, more energized, if you will, like it's buzzing a little bit. And that's because of all the stretching that we did. Now the yogis describe that sensation as prana, or life force. They would say that there's more life force in that leg than the other one because it's been stretched or exercised. The Taoists called that qi. Now what we'd like to do is transition over to the other side, do the same sequence on the other side. Before we do that though, we'll just bring our legs in and do a little counter stretch. So this is the leg cradle. And the leg cradle isn't so formal. It doesn't have a strict way that you have to do it. You see I'm just moving in a variety of ways. And what you're trying to do is bring a sense of balance and relief to your body. Okay, so you're not trying to relax your body and bring relief. So anywhere you're feeling kind of stuck or funny, you want to try and bring some movement in there, and hopefully that will bring a sense of relief. Then before we move on, we'll do something called the hinge. And to do the hinge, we slide our hands under the hips with the palms down, extend the legs up toward the ceiling. Now if when you do this your back hurts, then you're going to bend your knees until that pain goes away. Otherwise, the legs are nice and straight. We take a nice deep breath. We lower the legs. And then take a nice deep breath in before they touch and exhale back onto our back. Okay, so cattail is the first posture in the sequence. So I take my right leg up this time, drop it over to the left, and I'm in cattail pose. So again, I'm on this side of my mat, and that's mostly just because of the camera, right? It's not, you don't have to be on the other end of your mat. So cattail, again, we went over all the variations on the first side. Obviously that applies here on the second side as well. Just gonna scoot back a little bit. So one of the telltale signs, again, is a stretch at the front of the thigh. You want to check in, make sure you feel that. If you don't, you rearrange the different parts of your body. And then the other thing we're doing is twisting the spine, and this is a little bit of a back bend. as well. We're going into a deep back bend in our next posture, so we want to use this to just warm up the spine a little bit, get it used to moving. When we move our spine, it brings in fluid. It's called imbibing the spine. When we move it, we imbibe the spine with fluid, nutrition, all the things the spine needs to stay healthy. By the flip side, when we sit at a desk all day, or in a car, or in a plane seat for hours and hours and hours, we aren't really imbibing our spine with much fluid, and the fluid again has nutrition in it, and the fluid takes away the waste of the cells. So if you ever feel physically crummy, or even emotionally or mentally crummy, you might consider, when was the last time you really moved vigorously? And I'll just say that not all movement is created equal. Generally, movement is good for you, just like generally food is good for you. But some food is more nutritious than other foods, right? And some foods are even potentially bad for you. So it is with movement. Generally speaking, if you're a modern person, you're too sedentary. You sit too much, too long. So getting up, moving, walking, good for you. But there are certain kinds of movement and exercise that might be good in small doses, just like certain kinds of food, right? Or certain kinds of medicine. Small doses, the right amount. But too much can be very, very problematic as well. So just keep that in mind. Okay, we're going to transition. So we straighten that back leg and then prop ourselves up. And again, this is the half seal pose. Okay, so it's a back bend and it is a hip flexor stretch. Okay, so we're here and we want to feel it at the front of the hip. That's the hip flexors. We also want to feel a little bit in our back. That's obviously the spine. And again, you can overdo anything. So keep that in mind. How much is good for your body, your physique, your health. You're going to have to determine that on your own. I can give you information. I can give you advice. I can share with you my experience and the experience of my students and the experience of my training, but I really can't make that decision for you. It's sort of like if you're going to get a surgery. Doctor can make a recommendation, but you don't have to listen to the doctor. Right? If a doctor says you need this surgery, you can say, no, I'm not going to have it. So it's very much the same way. We always have to decide for ourselves ultimately what is right for us. A little over halfway. Okay, so again, this might be a little bit of an awkward transition for some. We take the back leg, swing it around. Okay, hopefully it's that easy for you, but I know some people might have issues with this knee. So again, you do what you need to do to keep your knees safe and to transition safely. Again, I'm going to turn for the sake of the camera. And this is a rotated half frog. So I fold over this leg and I'm looking for a stretch here and here. And for most people, that'll mean rolling or stacking the right shoulder over the left shoulder, okay? So like this. Let me just mention here, you might feel the leg or the waist more, one of those more than the other. That's okay. They don't have to be equal. And also, you might find you can only feel one, and that's okay too. So it is our intention or our goal to try and stretch both, but for some body types, some of the time, that's just not going to be possible. So I don't want you to sit here the whole time in frustration or fear that you're somehow doing something wrong if you don't feel both the thigh and the waist at the same time. Okay, so another transition. This time again, we just, very simple, we bring the legs closer. You could actually keep this leg out to the side, but you want to fold over the front leg. And again, I think most people will be more comfortable bringing this leg in. I'll again turn, okay, and then I just come forward over the left leg. And I feel the stretch in the back of my left thigh and my back. As I said in the last posture, you might not feel both. I don't really feel my back very much. I feel mostly my leg. And so again, that's just unavoidable. What I don't want to do, what I don't recommend, is thinking, oh, well, I don't feel it on my back, so I'm going to yank myself down until I do. And the reason I don't recommend that is that's a great way to injure your back over time. So yoga, the effects of yoga tend to be spread out over time. They tend to be long-term effects, not short-term. So yes, you can hurt yourself short-term during yoga, but the nasty injuries are usually the effect of a long-term, doing things incorrectly over a long period of time. So this might feel great today, but 6 months, a year, 3 years from now of doing this, every time you do this pose, you might find that you've developed a back injury. And you might not even put the two together. Seriously, you might one day wake up and there's a shooting pain in your back, and you go to the doctor and he says you have some kind of back condition, and you might not ever think that, oh, that came from pulling or yanking yourself down in these postures for months or years at a time. Okay, we're going to transition. So again, this might be a little awkward. Front leg bends. We take the back leg, bring it behind us. Okay, so we're in this position. This is a sleeping swan. Okay, and again, if it really is difficult for you to do the twist, if it's painful, if it's dangerous, just don't do it. It's as simple as that. But if you've been practicing with me for a while, if you're relatively healthy, even if you would rather stay here today, even if that's your preference, I'm just going to encourage you to get out of your comfort zone, okay, to do something a little different. It'll be good for you. So to do that, we bring the right shoulder to the ground, left palm to right palm, and then again I can push myself back a little further like this. All right, so again, I'm not saying this is the greatest pose ever, or you're going to love it, or it's going to change your life, but it's healthy for us physically, it's healthy for us mentally, and it's healthy for us emotionally to time get out of our comfort zone, to do something different, to do something unusual, to make ourselves a little bit uncomfortable. And I think more so in yin than other styles that I teach, sometimes there's a great resistance to this. People practice and they think that, oh, yin yoga is supposed to be the comfortable, easy yoga. And again, I trained with the gentleman who wrote the first book on yin yoga, and there was never any talk about, oh, this has to be easy, this has to be comfortable. In fact, he taught me quite a lot about the benefit of being uncomfortable and what comes from that. So I actually learned that from my yin teacher. He taught me in a very clear way. So it's not that the goal is to always be uncomfortable. Again, there's a balance there. But what we want is a interplay of yin and yang. Even in yin class, we want that interplay. So some of the postures, some of the sequences are easy and they're relaxing. Other sequences and poses are going to be more challenging or more playful. There'll be more movement, there'll be more variety. And this sequence is the only sequence in which I teach this pose, and there's the rotated half frog. This is the only sequence I do these postures in. So this is why I recommend go ahead and try it today. And then next week we'll be doing something that's much more run-of-the-mill, normal. Again, normal, we can say boring. It's all just a matter of perspective, and I embrace all those perspectives. I like normal, I like boring, I also like different and interesting. I'm not stuck on one speed or one approach, and I encourage you to also embrace that variety. Sometimes you want things simple, easy, straightforward. Sometimes you want to change it up. Okay, folks, so we're going to come back onto our back. Again, I'll just roll to one side. Doesn't matter which way you go, really. And then banana pose is our last posture. So I move my hips over to the left, take the right leg to the right, cross left over right, reaching up, I grab the left wrist with the right hand. And then again, you may have to move your torso over, you may not. It really just depends on what you're feeling. Again, we want to feel it in here. So obliques, intercostals, and the tensor fasciae lata, and perhaps the IT band. Those are all the areas that we're targeting in this banana pose today. I'm gonna move over a little bit more. All right, let's unwind. Coming back to a neutral position. And let's just let the body relax for a few moments. Again, we can feel the left and right sides. And then you can bring your legs in, give them a nice squeeze, move around a little bit. And then when you're done, you can come into the Pentacle one last time, but this time with the intention of relaxing in stillness for a longer period of time. You might be very busy and you might tell yourself that you don't have time or you don't need to relax right now, but I'm going to encourage you to really question that thought and see if you can take the next 6 minutes or so to just let your body be still. And instead of going to sleep, it's okay if you fall asleep, but maybe instead of going to sleep, you just consciously experience that relaxation. You enjoy it. I recognize when many people try and be still, they feel anxious instead of relaxed. And that's okay. And that's a very common thing. And yoga can help you with that. Yoga and meditation over time. You can make it so that when you're still, you feel a sense of relaxation, not a sense of anxiety. But it takes time and takes practice, like most things. Whether you feel anxious or not, I'll say that this is still good for you to do, even if you feel very anxious doing it. Maybe like going to the dentist. We might be very anxious going to the dentist, but we know it's good for us. So just take the next few minutes to relax. All right, everyone. So I really hope you enjoyed that. If you had any trouble with anything, again, please leave it in the comments below. Contact me, let me know. I am here, I am available, and this is what I do for a living. And so whether you are a paying client of mine or not, whether you're just someone on YouTube or you're a patron or whatever, I want to help you if I can. So reach out with your questions. Let me know what you thought. Let me know what posture was your favorite in today's sequence. Let me know which one was the hardest one. Let me know what you liked or you didn't like. I'd love to hear from you. All right, until next time, namaste and have a good day.